This is DJ Leary, our local poet and very interesting local artist. We're just thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate that.
So we met at a gallery that I used to have. Actually, it was Melinda's Place, Meditative Art Studio, and I was Meditative Arts Gallery. I was very clever with the name.
It was a reach.
If you laugh, laugh into the mic.
Okay.
It's the best part of the show. It's one of the reasons I have her, because she's got a great laugh.
There you go. Yeah.
Her, over there. So one of the things we do on this show, well, the one thing we do on this show is talk about art, visual art, mostly. And that's my comfort zone, because I'm a visual person, and I don't do words well at all. Okay, as you can see, I can barely speak. I don't understand words written by other people. I don't understand what other people are saying. So we decided to have a poet on, and DJ is a poet.
What we had talked about when we had the gallery was that art is so many different things, and just like how I met DJ, I met you at the Phoenix Public Market, and I just heard this click, 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 clicking, and I walked up to this interesting looking guy, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he was writing poetry on his automatic typewriter, not automatic, like just a little.
No, it was manual. Yeah,
a manual
typewriter.
typewriter.
Yeah.
And it was
no
so
bugs.
it was so cute, and I really have a love of manual typewriters. I have two. I was just kind of experimenting with them with my own writing. It's just a different way, and so it was really intriguing.
Yeah.
And then I asked you to join us for that 3-day show we did at the studio, and it was just a wonderful experience.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey. How did you start typing on the typewriter?
So I've been traveling on and off for a few years. This is prior to COVID, obviously. I guess my first experience with a typewriter poet was in London. I was in Europe overseas, and there was a guy outside Shakespeare's Globe doing exactly that, sitting there writing poems for people on demand. And I don't know. I just thought it was cool. I got to talk to him for a while. Just about what he was doing and about poetry, being a writer. And at the time, I hadn't even delved into poetry. I was strictly prose-based, like short stories. I was working on a novel. And it wasn't until years later that I started getting into poetry more seriously. And I kind of hit this period where for like 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, all I could write was poetry. I stopped writing prose at all, other than I was freelancing at the time. So I'd have some assignments, like restaurant reviews, etc. But in my private writing, it was all poetry. And I came to Phoenix, and it was at a First Friday. I met a gentleman here in town who his name's Isaac. He goes by Giddy Face. Look him up on Instagram.
Okay.
He does the same thing. He's a typewriter poet. And I was a little bit hard up for money. I was working at the hostel in Phoenix for room and board. I was trying to figure out a way to get some cash, survive as artists do. And saw this guy doing that, and I was like, oh, that's right. That's a thing you can do. I can do that.
Right.
I think it was like later that week I got my first typewriter. It was like 30-pound like desktop Royal typewriter, like absolutely not ideal for this kind of thing. But it was $20 or something off of OfferUp, so I just got it because it's what I could afford at the time. Started doing that. Went up to Scottsdale, went to Sedona, and started doing the farmers markets here in town. And then eventually got a smaller portable one.
It's funny, you say that as if, oh yeah, this is a thing you can do. Well, that's not a thing that everybody can do.
True. It's a thing that I could do. I recognized immediately. I was just like, oh,
right.
This is what I've been writing for. This is what I've been preparing for like 2 or 3 years now. And it fit my lifestyle in terms of just being something you can pick up and go. Like my whole setup, I can pack up in less than like 10 minutes.
Right.
And just be, out the door. So if I'm traveling around, it's perfect.
And you don't have to worry about having a plug.
Exactly. This was my thinking of the. I think this is why typewriters are coming back as a means of writing, like especially for street performers, is because you don't need a plug. And if you were using an electric typewriter, you need a plug. If you're using a laptop, you need a printer. So I'm not going to sit there with my laptop and a printer on the street. Like, that's insane.
Well, you could get a dot matrix printer. That would.
True.
Cleo, let's not interrupt the show. So you said you had written some novels or had worked on a novel?
I've been working on one for about 7 years now. It's on and off, not like consistently. That was my first COVID project, was to delve back into that. It's the kind of thing where I'll work on it for a while, realize I'm kind of missing a skill set, and go and refine that for a bit. So like this most recent iteration, I've been working on it at the beginning of COVID again, and it was like, this time I'm going to finish it kind of thing. And I hit a point where I was like, I was working with symbolism and metaphor, and trying to figure out how to do that like in the context of a story at a moment where I was kind of just like, I don't know if I ever really learned how to do this like in school or even outside of. And I was kind of sitting there and I was thinking, man, I don't really know if I even know how to like create convincing characters.
I wouldn't.
It's complicated, like most definitely. And it's not
now, hang on a second. I've been rereading The Foundation. You don't have to create compelling characters.
That's true.
To be successful.
There's there's plenty of authors that get away from it or get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, character is the most important part of storytelling. Like obviously having a compelling plot and like world building can be a lot of fun. But to me, what's really engaging about a story is characters you can relate to and see yourself in the shoes of, or even ones that are completely antithetical to who you are, but are engaging for other reasons.
Right.
For me, that's really like central. And I kind of had this moment of realizing that like when you go to school for an English degree, they don't teach you how to write, they teach you how to read, and they teach you how to argue.
That's interesting.
And like analyze. Yeah. And they teach you how to write in the context of like academic essays and like argumentative writing,
Correct.
but not creative writing. And I have a creative writing degree, and even that wasn't educational enough or informative enough to feel like I knew what I was doing. So I've spent the last year or so going back and kind of like just making YouTube playlists. I got a masterclass subscription and just been kind of going through that material
Just to develop that skill set.
Yeah, most definitely. So I've been focusing on short stories that kind of exercise those features.
That's an interesting point. When I went to school, I was going to... Oh, Catherine, did you know I went to RISD?
Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, I just want to make
It's
sure
an
you remember.
ongoing thing.
It's important that you remember that. When I went there, I thought I was going to study painting, but I wound up in industrial design because the first year I discovered the painting department technically taught painting, but it seemed like they were teaching more art speak and how to criticize work than to actually paint. And all the paintings that were coming out of the department were trash. This goes back to one of the premises that I've well, not premises. See, I've lost my words this morning.
You've
My
lost your
ideas.
words.
One of my ideas that I've had is that you can't really go to school for a creative endeavor. The schools just aren't set up for that, which is unfortunate because they could
I
be.
agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would take that a step further because my 2 degrees, one was in psychology, which was worthless, and then my nursing degree. And I don't think either prepared me for anything other than graduate school.
The nursing degree didn't...
Nursing was more technical, but, you throw yourself out there even after all the clinical and all the practicums and everything else you do, and you're on the floor the first time you realize you know nothing.
Well, at least it gives you the basis.
It gave me some basis, but I think really the true learning, I felt so unprepared initially, and so I think it was more of a technical exercise.
To some degree, I think education is just proving that you can learn stuff. Not necessarily stuff you need to learn, but you will learn stuff ongoing.
Getting that certification.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what they didn't instill a lot, and I saw it a lot now I'm like dating myself, but the younger nurses, as I moved out of the bedside and did more clinical and study work and different kind of quality, is they don't teach any like critical thinking or that rationalization process. So the ability, it's really easy to regurgitate a lot of stuff, but it seemed like the critical thinking skills were sorely lacking.
That's one of the things that drew me to the industrial design department was that it looked like they were teaching the kids not only how to make things, but also how to think about it. There's a creative process.
That's important.
I had a great professor there. One of the most important things he taught about was the creative process. If you're stalled or something, it is a process. You can create a process so you don't get stalled. So you don't have writer's block or artist block or anything like that.
I think for me, the past couple of years have been figuring out what my process is. So yeah, that's another thing. No one can teach you that really.
No.
You can pick up tips from people and this worked for me, or like reading people's autobiographies, for example. And I'm actually reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography right now, and it's weirdly inspiring. Like, I don't know, very informative, just how he is. And he talks a lot about his worldview and stuff. And even that, there's been little tidbits of like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I can apply this to writing in a way. So it's just the kind of thing where you try to bring in as much information as you can from like every source. I mean, he like bodybuilding was not a sport before he made it a sport. And recently I kind of helped start a new slam in town because the old one kind of was having some issues with ownership. So the people who frequented that slam, like friends of mine, other poets, we started our own slam. It's Ghost Poetry Show, GPS. They've been doing events out of Film Bar for the past couple of months now. I know there's a couple other slams that popped up in the area as well. So there's definitely like a vacuum now that's being filled that people are trying to move into. It's been kind of a wild couple.
Oh, where's
years.
Film Bar relocated? Are they still? They're not.
They're
old-
at the same location.
Are they? Okay, because I thought they
believe.
closed.
Did they?
I don't know. I read about it and I was sad.
I
and
was
then-
there fairly recently.
Okay.
Maybe. I haven't been as in touch with that group. I kind of helped get the ball rolling, and then I stepped away because I have too many projects going on right
Okay.
now. And if I'm being honest, performance really isn't my bag.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was never a theater kid. I liked making films when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
but I was the guy behind the camera, and that's kind of always been my role.
Oh.
I like the directing and the production aspect, and writing, obviously,
Right.
more so than the performance acting. Slam for me was definitely stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to do something
Okay.
new. And I enjoy it, but it's not something it's more of a hobby or a passion than like a career for me. Whereas like some of the other poets in town, like my friend Kaiti Pritchett, like that's her. She's a phenomenal slam poet. That's absolutely a career path for her. Like she's very, very talented.
Do they get paid for their performances?
So it's not with the slam. It's in the same way that it's open mic signups. It's just first come, first serve. The way you kind of monetize that, if you're not running the slam yourself and selling merch and that kind of thing, would be feature sets. So the same way that like a comedian will go to the comedy clubs and kind of just do the rounds and go out week after week after week, hoping that there's someone in the audience that's going to go, okay, I like what this person's saying. They're funny. Let me give them a spot. So it's just, hoping there's a person in the audience that's going to see you and be like, okay, I want to feature you as a poet. Here's like a 20-minute set at this location for this amount of money. And depending on the venue, that can be kind of lucrative. Obviously, there's not the same kind of scene for poetry as comedy. So I think it is a little bit tougher, but it's definitely doable. People like Rudy Francisco have made a career out of it. And, like he was on like The Bachelor recently or something. Like, he's like pretty famous as far as the poetry
about
community.
it. Did you know about this?
No, but again, I don't expect to because words are not my thing.
Oh, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And poetry scares me a little bit.
It's intimidating, most definitely. I think the way poetry is taught in school has absolutely been responsible for turning off an entire generation because it's taught through an academic setting, and you're reading Shakespeare and you're reading Dickinson, both of which are great poets, but for 10 to 15-year-olds or like whoever's like kids reading that, they're not able to relate to it or even
Right.
understand the language
Right.
really.
Yeah, I didn't
Yes.
understand Shakespeare until I was in my 20s.
Yeah, exactly.
And I started reading him out of school, with no prompt.
And I've heard this from several people of like, I never got this in school, but I went back and decided to read it at some point, and now it resonates with me because now I can you have the patience to sit there and unpack everything.
Right.
It's patience, it's development. Some of it is just maturity.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, really, I think you need a basis of understanding, of mature understanding, and a little bit of lived experience to understand Shakespeare.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's like I have a 16-year-old son, and we're careful about what we watch, but a lot of it isn't so much about the violence or sex. I don't really care what he sees sex-wise. It's more, gratuitous violence is the thing that really
Sure.
turns me off for him. I'm also careful about mature content, like a Clockwork Orange. Like, it'll be years before he's going to be ready to see that. But even a film like MASH, anyone could watch MASH. There's nothing controversial about it, but I still haven't shown it to him because I want him to have enough maturity to understand it, because it's a complex adult film.
It
really is.
absolutely. Yeah.
And he's so much smarter than me. I think he's about ready. So have a smart kid, because you can show them stuff sooner.
You can share your interests. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's well past my interest now. I mean,
Really?
I'm a console gamer. I play on an Xbox,
Sure.
but he's a PC gamer. And
Oh yeah, no, he's got a leg up on you.
that's the master race. I have to concede, so it's okay.
I also, as historically a console gamer, I played a few PC games like StarCraft, Warcraft, whatever, but mostly console, and I recognize PC vastly superior. There's really no contest.
Right.
But I just like
don't,
the controller.
Don't tell the console players that though.
No, they're already pretentious enough.
The pretentious. You think that console players are pretentious?
No, the PC,
right,
players.
right.
They're it's all my gaming rig cost me $10,000. Like, cool, you could have put a down payment on a house, my man.
Or bought a car. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a car.
That's what I love about console. I spend $300 or $400 or $500 every 5 or 7 years.
Yeah, it's more accessible.
I saw an article back on, I think it was Axios several months ago, about how gaming is racist because it's so expensive to get into. And I was like thinking, per hour of gaming, it's really not.
Yeah.
Especially if you get a used console for like $200, and then you can go to GameStop and buy used games. You can buy like 10 used games for $10 each. And
Nah, for real.
Go to town.
Yeah, I mean, I recently, I'd actually been out of gaming for a while because of travel, but I bought a PlayStation
Also,
4.
you're an adult.
Well, also, well, no, I mean, I don't think that's, the time issue is definitely a factor, but no, I got a PlayStation 4 for like $200 off OfferUp, and then got the new Last of Us game for like 20.
Right.
You know, it's $220 for, I played that game for 30 hours. You know, that's how many movies?
Yeah, and I mean, I still play,
It's a
so
lot, yeah.
I just play Halo though, so I'm really dull. I'm a limited
Classic.
gamer.
It's classic.
It's classic.
I don't play any of that.
You play Pop Tropica.
Tropic Escape on my
whatever.
iPhone. I mean, is that gaming? What is that?
Of course
It's
it's
gaming, yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it?
That counts, yeah. It's like casual gaming, I believe, is the
Casual
term, but,
gaming.
yeah.
I don't know. These ladies seem like it's more than casual for them.
Oh, it's addictive.
Yeah.
Those games.
It is
are-
addictive.
Yeah, it's designed to suck your time up, most definitely.
Yes, and you've got to, grow the rice.
Yeah, we had our last guest was also involved in this game, and they started talking about it, and it sounded like it sounded like a second life for you guys,
It is, yeah.
almost like a metaverse.
Some of the group has gotten very serious.
Mhm.
It's a little intense right now, but anyway. When the cruise ship comes in, their quote is to meet, and it just drives me crazy.
You know, it seems silly, but then my gaming is just as silly.
Yes.
I was screaming obscenities at my TV 2 nights ago
Oh my
because it was being
gosh.
very mean to me.
Yeah. No, kids are mean.
Oh no, not the kids, the game.
Oh, the game.
Yeah,
oh,
it was just
oh,
being
you're
very
playing
mean.
solo. Okay.
Yeah, and that's not a
Kids are
good
mean.
thing to do.
No,
with
I stopped
multiplayer.
playing online, like competitive online, because one, they're just way better than you. Like, you're never gonna be as good as a middle schooler who has nothing but time to sink into this game. But also, they're mean. They're
Well-
really mean.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I counter their superior dexterity with superior tactics.
That's the only way to. Yeah, that's what you gotta do.
Also, as I've said before, I play with better players and I hide behind them. So as they almost kill someone, I come in after they're dead and kill the person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just steal the kill. Yeah.
But mostly you play with other people because it softens the loss when you're talking to other people and you have. It's not just the game; it's also about talking to people
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I have the social aspect.
and
It
mocking
does.
them for not having gotten vaccinated yet. Stuff like that.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, we are. Men are not nice to their friends.
No.
I don't
No?
know. I don't know what women
I'm nice
are
to
like.
my friends. I'm a
Online.
I don't play online anymore.
Well,
Yeah, I haven't
there you go.
I haven't played online since like college, I want to say. I gave that up like 10 years.
All right. How old are you?
30.
Yeah, kids. There was no online gaming when I was in college. In fact, I
Fair.
remember here. You want to know how old I am?
Mm.
One day, my roommate called me into his room and said, "You got to try this game. This is a great game." So I sat down. I played it for 15 minutes. I said, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever done with my time in my life."
Was
I
it
went
Pong?
to bed. We'll get there. No, but I was one of the original adopters of Pong, where my
Nice.
friend was. I didn't have it at the time. But so the next morning I woke up and I noticed both of my roommates were still in my other roommate's room and they were still playing this game called Doom. Not Doom Eternal or whatever, Doom 2 or 3. The original Doom.
Yeah.
That was an awful game.
Dune?
And my son, no,
Doom.
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 With an M as in
Yeah.
murder.
Oh no.
And my son still plays that game.
It's a classic.
Ugh, it's crazy.
The attention to detail in the original Doom is actually like the level design's very
Repetitive? That's what I felt. I felt like I just kept running down the same corridor.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. You work with what you got in
Yeah, that's true.
1980 whenever that came out. Yeah.
90.
90? Oh, was it that late?
93,
Okay.
92. Something
Okay.
like that.
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
quite that
It was
old.
like 89 or something. I don't know.
Not quite that.
I think of Wolfenstein
Yeah, I think Wolfenstein was
came
earlier.
out first, yeah.
I don't know any of this.
Well, that's your problem. We can start over. My son can give you a whole class on it.
Yeah,
He'd
Maybe
love
we should
to.
have him on.
do an episode
Maybe.
of Gamer History.
Oh, gamer history. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says
okay.
as she rolls her eyes. She says as she
real
rolls her
quiet.
eyes. Everyone got really quiet. It's just like
Cleo
oh
could
my
help
God.
with that.
Okay.
Don't pay any attention to what we say. We don't know what we're talking about.
We're just so no. I thought I had back to the film bar. I can't stop thinking about it.
Okay.
Because I thought that they were closing because of COVID. Is it still across from Angel's Trumpet?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I went
perfect.
there the last time I was there was a month ago, so it was last first Friday. But I'm pretty sure they held an event at the end of the month on the 26th.
Good.
Was the
I
last
liked that
Go
place.
show. We were like they booked us up through the end of the year.
Love
so
it.
Wow.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I didn't follow anymore because so many businesses were closing or doing these weird timeouts. And I saw an article and I got really sad about it because I always thought it was a really cool venue.
Yeah, no, Film Bar is great, honestly.
Film Bar is
And There's
great.
really no better venue for a poetry slam in Phoenix that I've seen. I mean, there's
Okay.
a couple that I would like are equally as good.
Uh-huh.
Poetic Soul's been going on at Club Downtown, I think it's called, right next to the Grand.
Okay.
For like, I think like 15 years or something.
Okay.
I mean, that's a great venue. They do cool stuff there. And I think the Nash also has a stage. I haven't been there, but I've heard that's a pretty cool venue. But I mean, Film Bar is it's an ideal location. It was a good grab by one of the poets involved. So.
So you were talking about process earlier and being more character driven. You didn't mention actually what your novel was about. You don't have to give a overview.
It's about a lot of things. I'll give the succinct version. It's basically speculative fiction, like sci-fi, like near future sci-fi. So taking place in like 2050s, I think it's at. It's very focused on AR and I know like the metaverse thing is big now, but like I said, I started writing this 7 years ago. So it was around that time Google Glass, like the first one came out, and I was like, oh, this is the next thing. This is like, you're going to be wearing your phone on your face. And I very much still feel that way. It's just, it looked stupid, so people didn't want to use it. But you know, if you can make it look like, I mean, all three of us are wearing glasses right now. If you can make it look like this, there's no reason not to be completely submerged in that environment constantly.
That's a future that I really, really don't want.
No, it's honestly terrifying. A lot of, like, it makes me think of David Eggers' The Circle, if you've ever read that. It's centered on this fictional company that's very much just a Google. Like, it's just a rebranding of Google. But it's about all of these technologies that exist now, like today, just being popularly applied and like commercially available, and what that could lead to. And it's terrifying. I mean, you get to the end of the book, like, I finished it, and I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but this is back when I was still smoking. I immediately went outside for a cigarette because I was just like stressed. It's just like, oh my God, like this is a lot to digest.
Well, it's kind of like Star Trek got our future right, but just in the wrong way. Like, we're not the Federation, we're the Borg.
Yeah, very much so. I would say for me, what I'm working on, the biggest inspiration would be Brave New World.
Which one?
The Huxley's Brave New World.
Okay.
So you have 1984, George Orwell.
Right.
It's a society of like deprivation and oppression, which very much places like North Korea have kind of taken a cue from that book in a real way. But our society is much more like that depicted in Brave New World, where it's just this culture of massive consumption and overstimulation and distraction. And I mean, we're living in that now. It's not really arguable. I think everyone kind of acknowledges, like, all three of us right now have phones sitting on the table, and at any minute they can go off, and all of a sudden you're sucked into this other world that's, you know, just a bunch of buttons. Every time you press them, you get a little serotonin bump because, oh, I got a new like on that photo I posted, or whatever the thing is. So, like, no, it's truly horrifying if you sit there and think about it too long.
Well, it is. I have been thinking about it because, you know, in terms of like the gaming, I need to back off today, and I told them, we report to the group, it's like, it won't be on, and I do have other things to do, but I don't find this that far away, this thing, from having it on my face.
Yeah.
Because it's in my face all day.
Exactly.
And I do get that. I mean, a friend called me the other day, and she's like, I misplaced my phone, and I freaked out. She goes, and that's when I realized I am so addicted. She goes, this is just like an addiction, like when I was smoking.
If you misplace this thing, instant anxiety.
Anxiety
all day until you find it.
Exactly. And so it's not that much different. It's like, I feel like my world has become, and particularly with COVID, when other things have kind of disappeared or just dispersed and went behind closed doors, this became kind of my universe. And I'm just getting really boring and sucked into this. So, and it's harder to be, you know, it was hard to be creative anyway with all of the distractions that were going on because of COVID. And then this, it's like it's almost like too much energy. I'd rather play Tropic Escape.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather just search.
At least Tropic Escape gives you something to go into and not necessarily, obsess about, but it gives you a focus rather than a bunch of different distractions.
Right.
And it's this idea I've been thinking about recently, because it seems like it's been coming up in a couple different places where people seem to have a hard time understanding how their phone works. I've seen a couple of comments like, well, I don't know how this thing comes up on my phone, like notifications or emails.
Sure. Yeah.
And it feels like, I get the sense like they don't understand that there's email and there's Facebook and there's Twitter. It just seems like a stream that's coming into their phone, and they don't really know how to control it. And that's a scary thought to me, because in some places in the world, The internet is Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's all you know of the outside world is
Yeah.
whatever Facebook decides to sell you. Well, that was depressing.
Wow, that is depressing. No, a friend texted me the other day, and she's like, I was thinking about someone, and I was trying to text you about something that happened at work. And she goes, when I typed in your name, her name came up, and she's been dead for 4 years.
Oof.
And she's like, how the hell did that happen? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's still in your contacts.
And she's like, it was her little, her little photo. And she's like, I was instantly just chilled. She called me instead of texting. She's like, what the hell? Now is it reading my mind? So who knows? I mean, I'm sure it was just a glitch, right?
Oh, if she's still in your contacts, that's not going to change. I remember Tim Cook a few years ago said that, I don't know, they were at some Apple gathering. Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple, and they were at some gathering, and one of the other managers came up to him and said, I still have Steve Jobs' phone number in my contact list. I can't bring myself to get rid of that. And Tim said, yeah, me too.
Oh,
so it's a weird way, it's affecting all of our lives, including after we're alive.
Yeah. I mean, how many, so you have a friend, like I have friends who have passed that they still have Facebooks because they never deleted them before they passed. And now their Facebook just becomes a memorial wall. You go and check them every once in a while, and you see all these people that just some random day they were thinking about this person, so they posted on their Facebook, and it becomes very like a virtual memorial for this human. It's very strange.
Do you spend much time on Facebook?
I try not to. I recently, I wasn't spending a lot, but I was spending more than I wanted to. So I took the app off my phone. So I just have the Messenger now because I want to stay in touch with people. But then I just got sucked into Instagram. So it was like I traded one for the other.
Right.
Because I use my Instagram as like a business. Like that's the main way people contact me for poetry commissions or potential like business ventures or whatever is through Instagram. And I really wasn't using it for anything other than that. But then when I took Facebook off my phone, I was like, oh, hey, there's this other shiny thing I can poke all day. So I kind of got sucked into that a little bit. I would say I'm better than some people when it comes to that sort of stuff. I really only use it very occasionally. Like I'm not spending all day on it. I'm pretty busy most of my day. Like I wake up, work out, or try to, depends on the day, and then pretty much just write until I go to my day job, which I'm a cook. So I go and cook for 8 hours and then come home, try to read or maybe watch a show and then go to bed. And that's my everyday. So the time I have to really devote to social media is like pretty nil. It's pretty much when I'm on the toilet. That's really it. That's where I catch up with my email.
Well, being busy is a good life hack.
Being busy is good.
Yeah. If you just stay busy all the time, you got less problems.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't spend any time on Facebook at all. On the rare occasion I actually post anything, which is once a year probably, I remind my friends, don't reply to this because I won't hear you. I have all my notifications off and whatnot, and they don't listen. And I'll get on 9 months later and I'll see all these posts that are 9 months old and respond.
Yeah.
But for me, it's because there are two things I hate about Facebook. One is aesthetically, it's disgusting. I can't deal with their interface.
It's very bland, yeah.
And the other thing is, mostly what it shows me is my friends' stupid ideas. And I don't, they're political nonsense and oh God, don't even.
Yeah,
pictures of dogs.
Oh boy,
cats and,
I deactivated my account.
That's a good
thumbs
move.
up.
I would, but I have so many people that the only means of communication I have with them is through Facebook because, like I said, I travel a lot. So I got friends in Canada, in the UK, in Europe, Australia, like Iceland, wherever. That's the only way I can talk to them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I could use WhatsApp. But then it becomes this whole thing of like, hey, let's migrate over to this other.
Yeah, you're trading
app.
one for another.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still owned by Facebook. So it's like, what's really the difference here?
As is Instagram.
As is Instagram,
right? Yeah. And I will say definitely with running a small business, it is this weird space of like, I don't want to use this thing for personal whatever, although I do. Or like you want to try to minimize that. But then also you need to have an online presence because... There's so many visual artists right now that are just making a career off of Instagram, like for real. And same with poets. Like there's tons of poets that like Instagram poetry is absolutely a thing. And what it looks like is one sentence broken up into 3 lines. Like it's really just kind of vapid and like, it's like, I'm sad today. I'm in love with this person. That's it. So I'm appalled by it.
Hey,
I really can't.
At least
stand
that's
it.
poetry I can understand.
It's very straightforward. I'm just like, this isn't even a haiku, my man. Like, what? This is just what are you doing?
That's just celebrity.
Yeah, but people eat it up because they can scroll by it real quick and digest it in an instant. Be like, oh yeah, me too, and then scroll on to the next thing.
Instagram is a great platform, especially for visual artists, because it is such a simple visual system. I mean, there are fewer places I can point to as a better portfolio for photographers or painters or sculptors.
Absolutely. And I have friends that all the time are like, you need to, like, if you want to be more successful, you need to have more exposure on social media. And we'll all the time be like, you need to post more on Instagram. You need to like follow the algorithm and be posting every day. You need to do these things, and you'll be more visible, and people will follow you, and that'll equal money.
Right.
Well,
like
I don't know
the
about
thing.
it'll equal attention, but
It'll equal attention,
maybe
which
money.
ideally would equal money.
Ideally,
I don't really know how you monetize that other than ads, I guess.
Well,
or like if I'm getting more attention, maybe more commissions.
I think that is part of the con, though, is they want you to think that more eyeballs on your stuff, but where the reality is they're just using your content to sell their ads.
Yeah, I will say though, at least for visual art, I know it is definitely a space of like, if you got an Instagram account that has 1 million followers and you're a visual artist, you can now just sell like on the like blue chip markets. Like people will buy your stuff. You could sell paintings for like 500 grand because you have a following of 1 million people on Instagram.
At a certain point.
Yeah,
But
like
how many people are like that?
I'm not a painter, so I'm not.
There aren't that many people who
I'm not
reach that
entirely
level.
sure.
And a lot of that has to do with marketing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, but it's almost like a prerequisite to have this thing, to have a social media following. Like if you're trying to break into a creative industry, Twitter's the big thing for writers, really.
And journalists.
Yeah. Well, I saw recently, I was watching an interview with one of the writers for The Late Show, and she was saying, if you don't have a Twitter account with like 500K followers, like, are you even a comedian? Like you're not. Like, what's her point? So
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a like if you're trying to do this thing and break into this field, you have to engage with it in this way, or else no one's gonna take you seriously.
It's a resume. It's a calling card.
Absolutely, it's part of your resume. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it still is based on celebrity, or how marketing and how you get those followers.
Yeah, exactly.
Not, in the early days of the internet, which I was around for, I built web pages before there was, a long time ago. One of the ideas was, this is going to open up for everybody. Everybody is going to be able to get on, and things are going to be based on your merit, not on who you know.
Sure.
And I think for a little while, in the early blogging days and the early podcasting days, that was true. But at some point, like everything else, it just gets absorbed or overrun by marketing and celebrity. So it's not quite as open as we'd hoped it would. And it's probably even worse now because of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if it's me or if it's my age, but it feels like it's easier for me to disconnect from all this technology stuff. A friend of mine's even more advanced. He says he looks forward to the days where he can just put his phone down and walk out of his house and leave it behind. It's like he can't do that every day, but he enjoys that and he looks forward to it. And he especially likes getting out with his mask on so no one can recognize him. The cameras don't know who he is, and he's like an invisible secret agent. There's
definitely an allure to that kind of anonymity now, because it's like a luxury. Like you really can't, unless you're trying to go completely off grid. You can't do that. You're just too plugged in.
And I say it might be partly because of my age, because I remember, I grew up I was born in 1971, so I really grew up in the 80s and 90s. And that was, we had a lot of technology, but it was pre-real internet.
Right.
So we weren't connected the whole time. And I remember how that was. I remember having to have a map and figuring out how to get places. And that analog world was simpler in a lot of ways, but it was complex. And I don't know if it's nostalgia or if there really was something better about that than what we have today in this kind of overwhelming connection.
I think that was a lot simpler. And, to me, it's like, because I'm a tad older than you, it's like the more they try to simplify things, the more it seems complex.
It's like setting up a cable connection, your internet connection, right?
Right.
In the old days, you plugged your phone in, and it either worked or didn't work. And 9 times out of 10, if it didn't work, it's because your phone, some circuit in your phone blew out, and you just replaced the phone. Really easy. These days, if your internet goes down, it could be one of 1,000 different problems.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It could be a satellite in orbit.
Things seem like they're getting easier, but are they?
No, I don't think so. My ongoing angst with Verizon. Periodically, I have this weirdness with Verizon.
What kind of weirdness?
I was trying to increase some sort of data thing, and then they're like, no, you have to disconnect your bill from like this other thing and blah blah. I mean, I don't know. And what used to be like, you go to the mailbox, you get a bill, you'd look at the bill, you'd send a check, and you were done. And now it's 45 minutes of like, what's the prompt and what's the this and what's it. I mean, I spent so much flipping time the other day because evidently, I don't know what happened. Like someone tried to hack into my Verizon account.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this horrifying text. It's like, oh my God, if this isn't you. And so I'm calling, but to even get through. And so I was kind of anxious and I couldn't find the passcode. And so you're trying to get through I'm like, what? I mean, it was like literally 45 minutes to get to the point where I thought maybe someone could do it. And then like another hour to figure. And she's like, oh no, we've got to disconnect. So then they disconnect my Verizon account. So I have no way to pay anything online. And they're not sending me a bill.
Yeah.
And I can't access anything. And then she's like, well, and so we'll send you whatever. And then I got a notice that I was late, and I'm like, well, no one caught, you know, and it was literally within days, and there was like a balance of 7. It was just ridiculous. And I'm like, how many freaking hours?
How much was the balance?
It was like $121.
Oh, okay.
But I paid it all. And so I finally got someone that, you know, she's like, well, I can't take any payments. You've got to go through this thing, do like hashtag something, whatever. And I'm like, you know, seriously, it was like hours of my life.
To fix one little billing
billing thing because some asshole tried to hack into my Verizon account. Why? I have no idea why.
You're very important.
This
podcast
that?
Is putting you on the map.
Who does that? But why?
Everybody who
what's
tries
there?
to do it.
But what's there? I mean, I don't, you know.
Well,
I mean, credit card information for one.
Yeah.
Like, if you're making payments through it, that's probably like, I don't know what they were going after, but that's definitely
you know,
something.
if they have control over your telephone number, they can reroute text messages and
too.
they can take over basically your whole life. And I just usually don't talk about in the news technology news. Mr. Wordsmith over here.
Yes.
But I just saw this today. Hackers have gotten a lot more clever, and they will send out robocalls that says, oh, this is Bank of America. We suspect your account is being hacked. Please enter this 4-digit code that we're texting to you right now, and we can clarify this and lock out the hacker. But that call is actually coming from a hacker, and they instigate that 4-digit code being sent to you. That's actually coming from the correct source. And then once you put that in the phone, now they've unlocked you. This is the two-step authentication. They've unlocked your account.
Right.
So,
I've heard about this. Yeah.
So do not ever respond to people on the phone. If one of your companies calls you with a security concern, hang up and call them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened. I just didn't even respond to that because I wasn't sure if it was Verizon,
No.
and it wasn't. She's like, "No, this is going on." It's like, you know.
That's your security tip for the week.
Oh, thank you, James. Thank you, James.
Anyway, back to writing.
Yeah, let's go back. Thank you. You read my mind.
Technology. Stupid technology.
Well, it was related to what I'm working on, so in a
Right,
roundabout
right. The
way.
sci-fi.
Yeah, the sci-fi. Yeah, so it's all of these things though, right?
It's all your fault. It's all your fault, DJ.
It is. It's usually my fault if I'm being honest. So this is part of why it's taken me 7 years to write this book is because it's, you know, I'll read something like this, for instance, and be like, oh, that's cool. That's an interesting idea. Like, how is this going to play into what I'm working on? And, you know, technology is constantly changing, so it's constantly trying to update this thing I've been doing. Yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle just to keep up. Like, if you're a science fiction writer nowadays, trying to keep up with the pace of technology and projecting out, like, what that might look like, I think is very, very difficult in a way that maybe... not that hasn't always been a challenge, but I just think the pace now is such that it's a lot harder. Yeah, than, say, like, when Asimov was writing or...
I think when Asimov was writing, the skies were a lot less clear. So there was
Most definitely.
You could make up stuff a lot more easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to like predict things that you just have no context for. So, you know, the first science fiction writer, H.G. Wells, I read a novel of his a while ago that, you know, this guy was writing about the future before computers. This whole city he was like world building. It was just a system of like levers and pulleys, like it's all it was, and it's like telephone wires was everywhere, and that was the big thing. So it's just like, I don't know, kind of funny reading some of the retro sci-fi stuff and be like, wow, this is like way off.
The clearest thing I remember from the Foundation series was this one scene where they're on a spaceship and they want to calculate the hyper jump to the next system or something. And the guy's sitting down and writing it out by hand, the calculation.
Yeah,
so he spends like a day and a half. It's like, Isaac, how did you not figure out the computers were going to take this over?
Yeah.
It's like literally a calculator.
Yeah. Like calculators already existed. Maybe he just wanted to do it by hand. Maybe he's like one of those guys.
I don't know. That was when my disbelief was suspended.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like, sorry, you got this one wrong.
Yeah, I think that's very easy to do with science fiction, just because if you're really off base with something, it looks very hokey and corny, and it's like this guy, you know.
I'm usually pretty forgiving about stuff like that.
Sure,
but
yeah.
that was one point where it just wasn't plausible.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
You probably,
One question I have is like when you're writing on a novel, because I always have, let me just retract a bit. I always have these really, what I consider fantastic ideas.
Sure.
And it's just like, that'd be fantastic. And it just comes and it's just like this brilliant flash of light. And then it's like, how do you move forward out of that brilliance?
Yeah.
And how do you, what's the process? I mean, how do you do it? I mean, I have this, like, we were talking about a novel. I'm like, I have this dynamite idea
Sure.
for like a movie script. And this would be like blockbuster. I have no clue. I mean, it is so ridiculous. Like
Right.
world build. You're talking world building. You're talking character development. You're talking like a plot. I just had this idea, and I could see literally flashes in my head. How do you get out of that and onto paper and onto something real?
Right. So like the number one piece of advice I would say is just do it,
Mhm.
which
Right.
sounds awful. Like it's so unhelpful, right? But
It-
like,
Yes and no. But go ahead.
you know, as we were saying earlier, like everyone's process is different. So like for me, you know, I have an idea and okay, I have this idea for this character or this plot or whatever, and I'll start to develop it out. And then it really becomes a series of asking yourself questions of, okay, if this, then what next? Or if this, then what? And just kind of going through that formula of, there are some like key markers you want to hit, especially with like character, for example. It's okay, I have this interesting character idea. You need to identify their want, their need, and their flaw. And those are like the three main things you need to have with a character. Their goals, the things they need, the thing they need to overcome in order to achieve those goals, and the flaw that's preventing them from doing that.
Okay.
And that's really the center of any character in writing. And you can get a little bit more in depth with that, like what is their ghost, i.e., the thing in their past that has led to them having this flaw. What is the lie that they are telling themselves that's keeping them embedded in this like pattern of behavior? And then what is the truth that they need to discover in order to break this cycle and achieve their goal? So, and then from there, you kind of just extrapolate out like, okay, like what do they do during their day? What is their job? What is their education level, income level, etc. It really is a series of asking questions with like scene development. I'll usually just, if I have an idea for a scene, write that down and go as far with it as I can. And then when it stops, it stops. And it could be in the middle of the book. It could be at the end of the book. It could be at the beginning, or you know, the short story or whatever.
I think the main point you're saying, though, is break it down into smaller chunks.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you try to tackle a novel as this giant monolithic, like it's intimidating, honestly.
Well, if you try try writing a novel from word one, and just think you're going to write the first word and the last word, and all the words in between will be exactly in order. That's going to be impossible. It's the same thing with design. It was one of the first principles of design that I understood that was really very important. If you have a big project that looks completely insurmountable, just break it down into separate chunks and work on it that way, and do what you can.
Yeah.
You learn over time. I have a neighbor of mine, Paul Mosier, wrote a book, Train I Ride. It's actually, quote, a young adult book, but I, as an adult, thought it was great. And it was totally outside of my normal reading thing. It's about a young girl and her travel across the U.S., going from one caregiver to another. And that was a very character-driven story. And as I'm reading it, I don't know if it's because I knew Paul or just because it was such a different book, I could see like points where it seemed like, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I felt like he'd gotten advice for this particular part. Like
Sure.
It was, the character was so well developed. It's like, did he workshop this at some place? Either that, he's just brilliant. He might be just brilliant.
Right. I mean, it could be either or both, really.
So do you workshop that? Like, if you have a part of your novel where you're having a problem, do you go to like a writer's group? So that's the other thing I know about Paul, is that he's very active in writer's groups.
Right. I don't. I'm a pretty isolated writer. Like I'm an extrovert by nature, or like Myers-Briggs. I'm like 52 extrovert, 48 introvert. So I'm like,
Me too.
I'm just sitting on the line.
Me too.
But I do definitely get energy by being around people and engaging in social interactions, having conversations, etc. But I don't have like dedicated writers groups I go to. I have friends who are creative and who write, or who are just people I respect intellectually or creatively. They could be completely different medium, or like not even artist, just like someone who I know is sharp and has good opinions. And if I really have a problem with something, I'll bring it to them and go, hey, so I'm like trying to develop this thing. It's not working. Like, what do you think? And it's definitely the kind of thing, like, I imagine writers groups would help. And this is a thing I've been wrestling with recently in terms of a friend of mine who is a writer. They've been in this fan fiction group, and it's really helped them kind of push them both in terms of inspiration and motivation just to do the thing. And I've been kind of watching this, being like, all right, I can see how this is helpful now, just because I'm a kind of private person by nature. So when it comes, especially when it comes to my art, you know, I'm like, oh no, you can't. It's not finished. You can't see it yet. You know,
it's very private. It's hard to share sometimes.
It is.
It is hard to share.
I think writers by nature are very private people. You know, you talk to musicians, and they're generally a bit more gregarious, a bit more outgoing,
and they're performative.
Exactly. And a lot of poets are this way as well. Especially at least performance poets. I think there's the whole other side where of poets who are just written poets. They don't perform. They don't like performing. They just write for books. And I think that's probably a little bit more similar to the prose thing.
Speaking of poets,
Sure.
Do you have a few? Who are a few of your favorite poets?
Few of my favorite poets. So classically, I'm a big fan of T.S. Eliot. I think he was the first person I read in school who really turned me on to the thing in terms of like, oh, this is actually something that's interesting and engaging in a way that everything I'd read prior to him I didn't like. You know, I had read Dickinson, I had read Shakespeare, and that never really grabbed me. I like Dickinson a lot now. I read a whole collection of works by her a couple summers ago, and it was illuminating to say the least. But like in school, I was just like, I don't get this. You know, I'm being made to analyze this piece of work that I don't understand. But reading Eliot, specifically the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, I was like, oh, this is like different.
I guess that's a good reason to have not just, you know, don't do the general curriculum of just Dickinson and Shakespeare, but expose the students to multiple poets, because if they make a connection, that's what really can drive them to actually explore the topic and be interested in it.
I think a lot of poetry programs have it backwards by starting from Shakespeare and then working their way up. Really, I think younger students should be introduced to modern poetry. People like Reese Francisco, who I'm a big fan of. Also, Sarah Kay, Phil Kay, love both of them.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, something that might be a little more attainable to them, more understandable, and then work backwards.
Yeah, it's contemporary. You know?
Why don't teachers realize that?
Beats me. I'm not a teacher myself. I have a lot of friends who are teachers, because that's kind of what you end up doing as a writer if you're looking for work. A lot of times people will end up, like when I was in school for English, everyone's like, oh, you want to teach? I was like, no, I want to write. That's why I'm studying this thing. What kind of question is that? But I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I would imagine, you know, they could probably fill you in a little bit better on this, but I would imagine it has something to do with the assigned curriculums from federal or state level of like, oh, you know, you got to hit these particular authors when you're teaching your students literature. So I imagine you don't have a lot of wiggle room for introducing contemporary poets.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, I'm definitely a person who is in favor of letting local control. You know, let the teacher run the classroom, let the county run their county schools, and don't do it from top down. I think you just get the same from everybody, and that's kind of boring. Yeah,
I mean, I would agree to some extent. I think standards need to, like, there should be like baseline standards, probably,
but very little.
I think experimentation in general is important, especially when we have an education system that is absolutely failing our students.
Yes,
in a real way. Like our K through 12 education system is falling behind most other industrialized nations.
No, we're well behind.
Yeah, exactly. No. Well, I mean, sure. We've been behind for a minute, if I'm being real. So I think now is a good time to start thinking outside the box and trying something, because this is clearly not working, so we got to change.
And having watched this process over the past 30 years, it's a little bit mind-numbing to see the same thing happen over and over again with the same results.
Yeah.
They say, oh, test scores are going down, so let's cut out the arts and do more math and science.
Yeah, as if that's the issue.
And what happens? The test scores keep going down. And they don't stop and think, you know, we've been doing this, cutting the arts for the past 30 years, and the test rates keep going down. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like a little introspection isn't always a bad thing.
It also just sucks.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but also it's the top-down approach. Like the federal test standards have, just keep getting broader and broader. And again, test scores just keep getting worse.
Right. Yeah. And it's always the arts that gets targeted, right? And like as a creative, that's really hard to watch. Where there's a lot of emphasis placed on science technology because it produces immediate commercialized products you can sell to people, the ways you can make money. And the arts not so much. It's a bit more ephemeral. Obviously you can sell movie scripts and you can sell books, but they're not gonna really rake in the cash the way that like an iPhone is going to when you have Steve Jobs selling that, right?
It's funny you mentioned Steve Jobs again, but because he was a huge proponent of the arts, and he understood the connection between the creative process and the arts and the engineering process.
Absolutely.
And an engineering process without any creativity is very sterile. You can't really do much with it.
No.
It doesn't generate anything.
You're never going to innovate.
Learning an instrument is clear advantages to developing your mind. You actually become smarter. And it's the same thing with arts and engineering. If you mix them, you get better results.
Absolutely.
All right, well, then I guess we're done. We've fixed education. Now that we fixed education, is there anything else you want to fix before we leave?
Solved all the problems. Global warming? I don't know.
Global warming.
Oh, do you want the unpleasant truth about how to fix global warming? Nuclear power.
Oh, no, I've been saying the same thing.
Oh, there you go.
No one wants to talk about this. You want to reduce carbon emissions? And I mean, it's not renewable. You're creating nuclear waste, absolutely.
Well, not really these days.
But not really these. Yeah, and also the I-tier nuclear reactor in France it's the world's first fusion reactor that's supposed to go online in the next decade. It's still very much in the experimental phase, but like you create that, you just made a sun. Like that's unlimited energy with no nuclear waste and no chance for meltdown. Like, and everyone's talking about. Renewables are great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's no reason all these roofs shouldn't be covered in solar panels, especially in Phoenix.
Right.
Mine is.
Well, sure. This one I'm looking at is not. They got nails on
Nice.
it for
Yes.
the
They have
pigeons,
nails
I guess.
Yes.
Because they don't like birds. Oh, he's still sitting up there, though. Look at him.
Yeah, they knock them off.
Yeah, they just
Those
good
goddamn
for you,
pigeons.
buddy.
Good
No.
Yeah, the pigeons are
I
survivors.
will kill the pigeons. The pigeons are, they're flying rats. They need to die.
Oh no, I'm cool
Aw.
with them. They're chill.
Burn them in
They're
the
all right.
fission reactor.
So yeah, I'm one with the pigeons. I work on the streets. I can't afford to invoke their wrath.
We are
Like,
anti-pigeon here.
No, I'm pro pigeon party over
Yeah.
here.
Once you
yeah.
have a house,
Most definitely.
Pro pigeon
and they
party.
pooping all over everything.
That's
You just
hilarious.
gotta live with the poop, man.
No, I don't have
I work on the street.
Just more cats. We need more
Sitting out with a
cats.
typewriter.
So are you at the market I'm sorry if I'm talking
all right.
loud. Are you at the market every Saturday now? What's your schedule?
Most
And let people know
Saturdays.
where they can find you.
Yeah, no. So I've started doing Phoenix Public Market again, the downtown market. Saturdays,
Okay.
I usually show up around 9. I'll be there till close.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna take off this Saturday just because First Friday is tonight.
Oh, it
so
is.
I'm gonna
Look at
I'm
us.
gonna be out tonight doing First Friday.
Okay. And where do you hang out then?
Just wherever I can set up. If I'm being honest, it depends. I'm gonna try to get there early. Probably set up around 4th to 5th Street,
Okay.
like that little stretch. They get the most foot traffic. Like I'm gonna do that tonight, and I'm gonna be up late doing that because I'm always out till like 11 or 12 on First Friday. So I'm probably gonna skip tomorrow's market just because I'm gonna be exhausted.
Right.
And also the market after First Friday is always kind of it's always slower. People are tired.
People are tired,
They've been
right.
out all night. Definitely next weekend I'll probably be out.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. And your Instagram, how they find you on Instagram? Because I love like that you post the pictures of your
Yeah.
poems. I just think that's so adorable.
Thank
I
you,
really like
yeah.
that.
Adorable.
It's adorable, and it's just you see what he's doing, and then sometimes it's like the person's hand and they're holding it.
Yeah.
and it's just very personal. I think it's a great thing.
I
And so
always
keep
try to
doing
like
that.
capture. I always try to fit up the person's like thumb in there or something like that, just so it's a little bit of an aesthetic, a little bit like there's a real human holding this thing.
Right.
And for me, going back and like, I've written like hundreds of poems at this point, like maybe like over 1,000. I'm really not sure. Like probably well over 1,000 if I'm being real. I can go back and I'll see a person's thumb and I'll remember. I'll be like, oh, that was this lady or this guy, and like I can like picture their face in my head.
That's
still.
crazy.
I love that.
Yeah, and, like some people just stick out to you.
I'm very self-conscious about my thumb now. What does my thumb say about me?
It says a lot about you, man. You gotta,
Yes.
you gotta keep your cuticles clean. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I try.
So Instagram is
Words by DJ. That's my Instagram. It's my Twitter handle as well. I'm not really on Twitter, but one day maybe you'll see me post something.
We'll have a link.
It's up there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can reach out wordsbydj@gmail for commissions. Anyone wants to commission me for a
Sounds
poem, I do that. So.
Do you prefer Instagram though, or?
Yeah, you can DM me on Instagram. That's fine as well.
That's
really.
how we connected this time.
Yeah. It was over Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my primary means of communication with people. Now, that's also where all my stuff is posted, so you can check that out.
All right.
Yeah, I have books for sale.
So we fixed education and climate change. Wow, that's not bad for an hour.
That's great.
We just have to monetize
And we had
this.
a delightful discussion about poetry. And
I still don't understand it, but that's okay. I mean, I like Sarah Teasdale. I don't know. Do you know Sarah Teasdale?
No,
She was just like an awful poetess. I think late 19th century. Just dead birds and longing love songs and stuff like that. It's terrible.
Okay, I'll look her up.
Don't.
Okay, I won't.
Just look at my thumb instead.
Oh, okay.
yes. And so I'll have to keep writing now. I'm a little motivated.
Good.
Yeah,
we need to get your website going.
Yeah, I write poetry, but it's not good.
Share it.
No, I'm not going to share it.
Oh, God, you're
I'd
so
want
terrible.
you to share yours. Do you have anything you want to read
He's
to
already
us, or-
sharing it. Okay.
Ooh.
Not to put you on the
Not
spot,
prepared
but I
for
think we
this.
should close with some words by
consciously
DJ.
was like, this might come up, but I
That's-
didn't prepare anything.
Yeah, if we can.
I can just read the last thing I wrote at the
Okay.
scarecrows or nature. I'm gonna give you the choice.
Okay.
Scarecrows. Okay. Okay. So this was just a prompt someone gave me as a gentleman. The prompt was scarecrows road trip clay. It was just 3 words, and like write a poem out of it.
Okay.
Long winding blacktop running for miles over barren stretches of earth. The feeling of knots up your spine. The sensation of dirt underneath nails. It's been 2 weeks since you got gone. Since your poker chips were cashed in and concrete was traded for red clay. Lonely straw man stands in open fields, guarding nothing. The crows still coming and going as they please. How foolish of man to threaten the sky. How foolish of him to think the sun looks down with friendly eyes. Thank you.
You pressured me into clapping. No,
Loved
that was
it.
good. Actually,
Pro pigeon.
I read that
Pro
this
pigeon,
morning.
man.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the birds. You ever watch Hitchcock?
I have. I watch movies. I just don't read books. All right, I guess we'll wrap it. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys.
Okay. We'll have you on again, and you can read all kinds of stuff.
I'm
And then-
down.